Thank you all for coming on this Earth Day. The first Earth Day was celebrated on this date in 1970. It was the brainchild of Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson, who envisioned it as simply a one-day teach-in about environmental issues, akin to the anti-war teach-ins that were prevalent at the time. Once he announced this event, though, more than 2,000 universities, 2,000 community civic groups, 10,000 elementary and secondary schools committed to participate in that first Earth Day. The mayor of New York closed a 2-mile stretch of Fifth Avenue so protesters could march. And so many congressmen planned to give speeches and participate on that first Earth Day that Congress closed down for the day. That day, students on college campuses across the nation began gathering to read and study about environmental issues. That was followed with cleanup activities and rallies and speeches, and media reports from that time say that 20 million Americans participated in that first Earth Day. That was a full 10% of the population. Months after Earth Day, partly inspired by it, the Environmental Protection Agency was created. The ensuing decades saw the passage of landmark environmental laws such as the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Endangered Species Act. The one-day teach-in has become an annual event, institutionalized as a day of environmental awareness not only in the United States, but around the world. And estimates are that in the year 2010, 1 billion people participated in Earth Day activities like this. Earth Day is a secular celebration, but it has its roots in Judaism. Protecting human health and the diversity of life is a value that is emphasized in the Torah, the Talmud, and rabbinic literature throughout the ages, beginning with God's command in Genesis that Adam and Eve serve and protect the Garden of Eden. A reasonable interpretation of that is that we are obligated to weed and cultivate our global garden, the planet Earth. Earth Day is also consonant with the Jewish concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world by eliminating injustice, disease, poverty, starvation, and by protecting the planet. If Earth Day has a message beyond the celebration of nature, it is that we all need to be more tuned to what our damaged natural environment is telling us about our world's spiritual and ethical health, and to commit ourselves to being part of the cure. As one commentator has said, it's not only part of the Jewish tradition, it is a global human imperative. The topic of today's panel is West Virginia's economy and the environment, conflict or opportunity. Each of today's panelists, most of whom are not Jewish, by the way, but each of them practices tikkun olam in his or her daily life. Our panelists are Don Garvin, a Presbyterian fly fisherman and senior legislative coordinator for the West Virginia Methodist.
He's taking offense.
I deeply apologize. He is the senior legislative coordinator for the West Virginia Environmental Council. Sarah Halstead Boland, who is a Presbyterian.
I am a Presbyterian.
But not a fly fisherman.
No.
Yeah. We're working on that.
Not yet.
She is the founder and executive director of WVGreenWorks. Bill Kroesser, a Unitarian but married to a Jewish woman, is an instructional specialist with the Kanawha Valley Community and Technical College, and Allan, Tweddle, who is a member of the tribe, is CEO and Chairman of Composite Transport Technologies, and I will give longer introductions of all of these as their turn to speak comes up. The plan is that each of our panelists will speak for perhaps 20 minutes or whatever they would like, and then we will break for refreshments, and when we return, the floor will be open for questions. First up is the gentleman at the end, Don Garvin. He is a former oil and gas industry executive. From 1982 to 1998, he was vice president and field manager of the Braxton Oil and Gas Corporation, which was a family-owned independent natural gas production company. He is now the lead lobbyist for the West Virginia Environmental Council. He has promoted the concept that solving climate change is an opportunity for economic development and job creation. Don is also a member of the National Board of Stronger, which is a national natural gas industry oversight organization. And in addition, he is a board member of both the West Virginia Rivers Coalition and the West Virginia Highlands Conservancy. Please welcome Don Garvin.
I think I'm going to try to move this so I can see my own slides. And still talk to you. Any idea?
Hold the mic by hand. Take the mic, hold it. Take it out of the stand.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Earth Day. I may have read the same Wikipedia blurb about Earth Day that was used in the introduction. And in that, they discussed that they called it Earth Day because they wanted to say Happy Earth Day, like Happy Birthday. Anyway, a little bit more about myself. I've been with the West Virginia Environmental Council since 1989 in one form or another. And click. The West Virginia Environmental Council was formed in 1989. What did I say? I've been there since 1999. But involved with them, I was involved in the beginning. A lot of people were. Pam Nixon in our audience was. The Environmental Council was a product of a meeting that the then Speaker of the House, Chuck Chambers, had in 1989 or 88. He called all the environmental groups together in one room because he wanted to know what their priorities were. And shortly thereafter, the environmental groups all met and decided they needed to have a lobbying arm. They were all nonprofit 501c3s, meaning they couldn't lobby or couldn't lobby much. So they banded together and formed the West Virginia Environmental Council. And the primary thing we do is lobby the legislature and work with the state agencies. Our mission statement mentions federal agencies. They're too far away, and there's way too much work to do here in West Virginia. So occasionally we write letters to Congress or congressional committees or appear at congressional committee hearings. Next. Not knowing that there was going to be an Earth Day introduction, I decided to do one. That's the Earth Day flag. We have an official Earth Day flag. And just to give you some context, the teach-in was very much a product of the 60s. And there was a lot of pollution. The Cuyahoga River was on fire. And that led to the Clean Water Act being adopted. Richard Nixon, of all people, created the Environmental Protection Agency. There was just a lot going on then. The 70s was a true era of federal regulation. And the way environmental regulation works is the federal agencies, the EPA and others, set the standards, nationwide standards, and then leave the implementation up to the individual states. In most cases, there's some states that don't want to do it, haven't wanted to do anything, and don't have primacy yet. But anyway, next slide. I'm going to talk about an article I saw about 10 days ago, and it was on Slate Magazine. The article was called "It's Time to Frack the Innovation System: What the History of Fracking Tells Us About Our Short-Sighted R&D System." The author was Allan. Fracking, by the way, is shorthand for fracturing, which I'll explain in a little bit. On April 18, 1977, President Carter went on TV and declared we were running out of domestic natural gas. But he was wrong. About the same time, the U.S. Department of Energy, DOE, was conducting the Eastern Gas Shale project. It had two goals: evaluate the gas potential of eastern shales, the Devonian and Mississippian, and develop new drilling, stimulation, and recovery technologies. Stimulation is the same as fracturing. The project concluded that we weren't running out of natural gas, as Carter had claimed. In fact, we had gobs of it. We just lacked the technology to extract it. Next slide. And so a coordinated private-public research and development effort was launched to create a technological fix. It was a kind of mini Manhattan project, with the role of J. Robert Oppenheimer, played by this really colorful, wildcatting engineer, entrepreneur, George P. Mitchell. He was a Texan, and he was convinced that the enormous quantities of gas locked tightly in the Barnett Shale in Texas could be squeezed out. So, here's what happened. The DOE subsidized Mitchell to drill his first horizontal wells, covered his costs beyond those drilling a typical vertical well, and the federal government provided unconventional gas tax credits. The Bureau of Economic Geology created high-resolution images of rock surfaces that yielded information about their porosity. Porosity is the space between the pores in the rock. And believe it or not, solid rock has a lot of pores. It has a lot of pores. You won't see it, but they figured out how to see it. Okay, Union Pacific Resources, a private company, had perfected its a method for hydraulic fracturing. Then DOE Sandia Labs contributed microseismic fracture mapping software that helped the operator make adjustments to improve the flow of gas. From the technological and engineering standpoint, these efforts were hugely successful. Okay, here's a very simplified illustration of the new horizontal drilling and slickwater hydraulic fracturing technologies that were developed by this big R&D effort. Instead of drilling down and fracturing vertically, they've perfected the art of drilling, of directional drilling, of drilling down and actually turning the drill bit and the drill pipe so that it will drill horizontally along that line when they get into the end of that formation. That gray line is the Marcellus Shale, for example, or any shale. Then the new technology, the reason they needed to fracture at many points was that if they fractured at just one point going down, fracturing out this way, the shale is really clayish and it's gummy. And as soon as they would open the pores, they'd close right back up. And so they developed this slick water fracturing that used different set of proppants that both conventional fracking and this slick water fracturing use basically water. Millions of gallons of water for each well. Sand is pumped in. They use acid first, HCl, hydrochloric acid, to break the formation a little bit. Then they pump all this stuff in with these chemicals and pressure it up until the formation breaks. Well, the first thing they do is they go in, once they reach total depth, they go in and they use dynamite charges to create holes, perforate the drilling pipe, or the production pipe. And then they pressure this up, and when the pressure gets high enough, the formation breaks, the water and sand flow into it, and the gas starts to flow back out as they release it up at the top. Okay, so that's the technology. However, Mr. Burgell, the author, then pointed out in this article that the shale gas research and development projects assumed a kind of vacuum. The only criteria were technical feasibility and economic profitability, and the innovators failed to consider questions about how the technologies would play out in the real world. And then he asked some questions. What is the long-term fate of the chemicals that remain underground? What do we do with the toxic mixture of fracking fluids and naturally occurring radioactive materials that flow back up the wellbore during drilling and production? How will local roads handle the increase in traffic volume that results from the roughly 1,000 truck trips on these roads during the drilling of the well? What are the air quality and climate implications? Can we safely frack in places where people live? I'd add, can we safely frack in non-attainment areas? Areas already not meeting the EPA's Clean Air Act standards. What happens when the wells run dry? Is it wise to further commit ourselves to a finite fossil resource that requires such extreme measures to extract? These are all questions that we should be asking, that any kind of an effort at talking about sustainability, which we've been, Sarah and I and Allan have been involved in a lot of over the years, would ask up front, possibly. And I thought back about, to end with, I thought back about Jurassic Park. Did you see Jurassic Park? Actually, I ran ran through it again the other night, and there's a lot of ethical questions asked in that movie about genetics and let's see. But one of my favorite actors in the world is Jeff Goldblum, and he plays this mad mathematician in the movie. And this quote from him, I think is great, and what I want to finish on. He says, "Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should." So, I guess I should say something about the E-Council's efforts at renewable energy and the discussion of climate change. Climate change is not a word that's welcomed at the Capitol in West Virginia. Nor are the words renewable energy. Oh, and by the way, some of those same problems that are plaguing us with oil and gas apply to the development of wind as an alternative source too. I mean, do we want to see the industrialization of rural West Virginia? This stuff isn't happening in Charleston. It's happening in the places that most West Virginians value most. Our mountains and highlands. But at any rate, we've been part of the discussion. We've been trying to use examples from our neighboring states on the opportunities involved in renewable energy and a transition off of fossil fuels to something sustainable. What that something is still undefined and likely to be a mixture of things. But I've noticed over the last 5 years that almost all of our debates at the legislature, at the West Virginia legislature, about environmental issues are energy issues. And as this goes on, West Virginia Environmental Council and our member groups look forward to participating in true discussions of how to do it right from the beginning and not as an afterthought. Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Sarah Halstead Boland. Sarah is the founder and executive director of West Virginia GreenWorks. That is an organization dedicated to building diverse, sustainable opportunities among West Virginia's workforce as it adapts, retrains, and embraces jobs in the rapidly growing green industries marketplace. West Virginia GreenWorks helps communities revise, retool, and reinvent themselves for a new, greener economy. In addition, she is the founder of the U.S. Green Building Council. That group's purpose is to provide a resource network for people who are interested in making buildings and neighborhoods more environmentally friendly. Additionally, with her sister, Rebecca Kimmon, Sarah runs Catalyst, a communications firm that is similarly dedicated to green and sustainable economic, community, and workforce development. Please welcome Sarah Halstead Boland.
I'm going to cheat for just a moment because what I've done to myself here is up the ante. I've timed my presentation, so as soon as I turn it on, it's going to advance every 15 seconds. Every slide will advance. So one thing is for sure, at the end of this conversation, my conversation, it will be a short one. It'll be 10 minutes, I think. But I wanted to cheat just a little bit because I wanted to thank Dawn and Allan in particular for hours of explanation and mentoring. When I came back and I started asking questions, the questions were endless, still are endless, and these guys know so much, and my hat's off especially to the Counsel. I've often said there's a handful of people standing watch for the entire state under the dome, and it ain't easy being green down there. So with that introduction here, my little cheat, I also wanted to kind of frame this conversation up today in terms of a conversation, because that's where a lot of things happen in West Virginia. I often joke about my mission comes down to a handshake, hug, and a kiss to every West Virginian, inviting them to dream, change, do, and it takes that personal relationship. So I will start now. So I am Sarah Halstead Boland, and West Virginia GreenWorks is a 501c3 nonprofit. It was established in 2009. We want to thank you because you are the first organization that voluntarily has decided to fund us, and we're incredibly grateful for that. We wanted to explain kind of who you're funding and what you're funding and what you've gotten yourself into. We hope it's an agreeable commitment, and I'm hoping that that slide does advance. I'll tell you a little bit more about this advancing slides idea, but maybe it's not going to work. Maybe I do have to stand here beside it. All right, well, yeah, my little time slide wheel is not working. All right, so am I anybody's way? Okay, I'm going to tell a little story here. I've got a 3-year-old, and story time is often a time where we can convey bigger thoughts to each other, so I'm going to tell a story as context here. When we talk about my partner, we say we, it's often my sister. How many folks know Rebecca Kimmons in town? I was telling this young lady here that I often don't need a name. All I need to say is I'm Rebecca Kimmons' little sister. And everybody says, oh! And then I told her, are you talented? That's the next question. Are you talented too? And there's me. So we are the dynamic duo of Catalyst Development Strategies. But I'm going to tell the context of how we got to be where we are right now and why I'm standing here. We joke that we are the accidental non-profiteers. There's a third guy in our mix, Mike Estep. We're not going to talk too much about him, but I figured I'd blast you with a visual. How many people have seen this guy out and about in our town? There's a project that I'm working on where there are 3 mics, and I call him Bald Mike, and he loves that. But Mike Estep is a fundraiser. He's been in leadership of the Nazarene Church worldwide. He's been to every nook and cranny everywhere. He's a Doug video producer. He's just amazing. And we're all wondering why he's still here. His answer is, because I like working with you and Becky. It's really interesting work. So we've decided he likes pushing a P up to About 5 years ago, when I came back from San Diego, or let me back up even more, I graduated from West Virginia State with an education degree. Really never occurred to me to get out. You know, some youth are like, I am out of here as soon as I can. Didn't really occur to me to do that. I wanted to teach, and I got my first teaching job in Bowen, where I was considered an outsider. And I got the old reduction in force notice. I got recruited by some folks in Northern Virginia, and I was off because after that I was with the Department of Defense, and I lived and taught in Japan overseas for several years, and I've never been the same ever since. So after about 20 years of living around the world and then being on the East Coast, I came back, and the conversations just aligned, because it's not the first time these conversations have happened, but it was the first time I got to be part of them as an adult with enough experience to chime in. So the result of all these conversations, it seemed like the conversations were always, you know what this place needs? And then fill in the blank. Have you ever said that about Charleston or West Virginia or under the dome of the Capitol? What they need to do is fill in the blank. What we need to do is fill in the blank. What this place needs is a fill in the blank. So Rebecca was the founder of Catalyst. And she used to beg me to come back to work with her, but I was intimidated. She's brilliant, very gifted. And I said, what do I know? There's 17 years difference. 20 years later, I come back and said, okay, let's do this. By that time, she was done. She said, I don't want to do this. I'm ready to write my play. And I said, play? You can do that just before you die. She said, but I got her to come back. So now it's Catalyst Development Strategies. Then the other conversation resulted in Create West Virginia. Now, I'm here to talk about West Virginia GreenWorks. I'm talking now about Catalyst and Create. I can't ignore it. These two organizations have had the biggest influence in my life here in West Virginia. And so now we have Rebecca Kimmons and Sarah Halstead joining forces. Sarah Halstead Boland. See, I have forgotten to use my married name again. So joining forces. And we got this crazy little idea that we were going to be triple bottom line. We do things to make projects come to life. If you get a ton of money for a grant and you come to us and you say, how do we translate this into a program? Then we come up with the copywriting, the communication strategy, the website, the flyers, everything. We make it come to life. And we said, we know that we devote our entire lives, our entire existence to the projects that we work on, whether it's genetic that we're workaholics or what, we don't know. But we knew enough to know that we've got to be triple bottom line. Everything that we do has to be good for the people, good for the planet, good for the profit, bottom line. It's a new business kind of model that we hope more folks get into. So, Catalyst went large and in charge, announced that it was going to be this triple bottom line communications firm. We cut ties with clients that didn't quite match. We always worked with nice people, lovely people, but it didn't align completely with what we wanted. And this is what we heard a lot of. So, we went, wow. People aren't banging down our doors to work with two gifted people that are passionate and will just live the project for them. We're going to have to start our own thing. And that's been our mantra since. West Virginia, if you're going to change, you got to start your own thing. And it starts with conversations and education. And so we went back to this Create thing. This Create initiative is a grassroots initiative. It was born of Vision Shared. I won't go into all of that, but we kept talking about place because our sentence was, you know what this place needs is fill in the blank. So Becky and I became experts in this. We're consumed by it. We talk about it all the time. We have family arguments over it. I have a big family. There was a big family argument over sustainable stewardship and all that stuff this morning. So quality of place, we started looking at who's leaving West Virginia and who's moving here and why. And then we got into this notion of who creative workers are, because a lot of people are saying that knowledge workers, innovation workers, and creative economy members are the ones that are driving the next big wave of everything that's happening around the world. So what do they like? If we could spruce ourselves up, what would it look like? Well, these creative innovation workers, they like variety, they like opportunities to grow, they like fun, they like great conversation, they like having friends that kind of know what they're talking about, they like comfort and convenience, they like outdoor activities, they love beauty, they like low cost of living, they love natural vistas. They love clean air, clean water, good land use and planning. So we started looking at who's cool out there. Of course, you've heard of all these places. And then we looked at our places, and we said, yeah, hey, we're getting it. This is pretty awesome. You could get pretty pumped up pretty quickly when you start looking at all the places that have gotten a little love from the media. You know, best town, a town to must see before you die. That's Lewisburg's, I think. One of the top 100 small towns to see before you die. That was before the bucket list movie. So, which places succeed most? Becky and I were talking about this a lot. And we were helping community leadership and go-getters to figure out how to polish themselves up and put forth their best effort and attract the best and the brightest, or retain the best and the brightest, like this young lady sitting right here. You know, what do we offer her to keep her brains, her talent, her energy here? We still want her to be exposed to everything. We want her to travel. We want her to want to come back when she's ready. We don't want her to feel trapped. We don't want her to feel like there's no other option. So what do we have to offer here? And so I noticed that people were talking about all this other stuff too. Create West Virginia didn't so much talk about alternative renewable energy. Well, since we're all just friends here, you're scared to death of it. Don already told you, if anybody's talking about renewable energy under the dome, you could quickly become a pariah. So, Create West Virginia and Sarah Halstead kind of button heads. I said, hey, you want the next Google? Google likes clean air, clean water, good land use and planning. They want to see policies that support their kind of way of life. They want great schools for their children, and outdoor activities and all of this other stuff. So let's get honest about it. We can look at our place and fix things up, and then lo and behold, I told you guys that Catalyst was saying that we had to start our own deal. One of the initiatives was establishing the U.S. Green Building Council. Now, I chose the U.S. Green Building Council to bring to West Virginia. I didn't found the whole thing. I'd love to say I did, but I didn't. It's across industries. It was started in 1993. It got traction probably in 2000. How many people have heard of the U.S. Green Building Council? Awesome. How many people have ever heard about a LEED certified building? Okay, more people. LEED certification is the green building certification of the U.S. Green Building Council. So, and it's really funny. For the first time Don and I really got together, they had legislation to support that West Virginia's public buildings be LEED certified at the silver level. And they had worked so hard that another certification program that got worked in there, Green Globe, not globes, Green Globe, and it was just a mess. And I got called in to talk about it a little bit. And it's just so funny to hear how much misinformation there is. One senator said, and I'll leave her unnamed, but she was managing an office complex. And they were bragging that they were building a LEED gold certified office. And she was psyched about that. And I went into her office saying, I am so thrilled to hear that you are championing this kind of progress. I'd love to have you involved with the U.S. Green Building Council. She goes, they're a shady bunch. What? Excuse me? She goes, oh, they're shady. They are just, you should not ever trust them. They are shady, shady, shady. I said, do you know that they're the ones that started the U.S. Green Building Council LEED certification? And you're bragging. I mean, it's in the newspaper that you're building this. So, well, anyway, I thought it was funny. And then the last time I was talking about U.S. Green Building Council certification, another delegate said, I know all about LEEDs. I said, well, it doesn't have an S on it. So, there was another fellow down in the southern part of West Virginia who was listening to all this stuff, and he was told by somebody at the Governor's Office of Opportunity that he's got to start a nonprofit, it's got to be about green training, and he didn't have any time to do it. And he thought maybe this would be a good thing for me to take on. I loved it because it had some kind of a tie to the government, and it showed political intent, even if it wasn't super true, I grabbed onto it. So it became West Virginia GreenWorks. Now, Dawn mentioned that there's a whole lot to do, so they don't deal with a lot of federal stuff. I will talk about a lot of these things, these little icons. We talk about sustainable agriculture, clean water, transportation. We talk about tourism, conservation, clean air, land use and planning is the shovel, sustainable forestry, talk about a fight, those fighting words when you say sustainable forestry in this place, and then renewable energies, and then high performance building. Build Green West Virginia has given way to the U.S. Green Building Council now. So I've been spending most of my time talking about high-performance building and code changes because everybody has buildings in common. 90% of our lives are spent inside buildings. So I thought, nobody can argue with that. Everybody would like indoor air quality and lower utility bills and better conservation of our resources. So the goal of West Virginia GreenWorks is really healthier communities, better everything that we can think of. And we knew we had to do it by connecting everyone. So we're out there really trying to connect business leaders, educators, individuals, kids, workforce development boards, and the state and federal agencies. Now, workforce development boards, how many people know about the WEA Act of 1998? Wow, that is amazing that even 2 people know. Do you work for the state? Okay.
I'm marketing communications for I do some work for some imaging.
Okay, all right. Now, everybody here should know, because millions of dollars coming to your Workforce West Virginia arm, and that's from the Workforce Investment Act, and we should have Mike Daddy, unbelievable diverse training opportunities, and we're working on it. Okay, so I talk a lot about jobs, and all this talk landed me in partnership with some Workforce Investment Board folks, mainly the southern ones, Melissa Aguilar. She is the Executive Director of Workforce West Virginia Region 1. And so I really try to sound intelligent. I mean, I drill down and I say, you want to know what green jobs are? There's jobs in all these different areas. So you can see where you are in a traditional job, and we can talk about how to green that job. And the contractors, I love these guys because they say, what do? Swing a hammer differently on a green building job? And now I can tell them, yeah, after about 5 years of incredible learning and putting myself through some of the things, yeah, you do. So you can see here in this list here, this is kind of a wonky slide, but we talk about building inspectors, electricians, heating and air conditioning folks. Those are key people in a green building project, and they have no training because we don't require it in the state. And this is something that will link Dawn and I together forever until the codes get changed here. People don't sit around thinking about codes. You don't sit around thinking about, is your house performing the way it should be for you? Yet. But you do sit around thinking, man, I feel terrible. The new carpet smells so bad, and this paint is just driving me crazy. Or they paint at work, or they put new carpeting in at work. I think building number 6 is certified as a sick building on the Capitol complex. It's costing us, you and me, millions of dollars in absenteeism, health issues. Sick building, toxic building makes unproductive workers, sick workers. So now, when you think about going home, we go from one bad building to home, and your contractor or your husband or your wife didn't know any better, and you've got urea formaldehyde in all of your materials, and you got the new carpet, but you didn't realize it was going to off-gas for the next 10 years. And you varnished your floors, and you didn't realize that's going to off-gas, and it causes something that feels like arthritis and fatigue, but nobody really understands it.
Yep.
Yeah, and just the smell of the fingernail polish remover and your new shower curtain. It just smells plasticky. Anybody ever smell that plasticky smell? You get some rubber boots from Target. You get your $1.99 shower curtain from Target. It's just smelly. Toxic. So I thought, hey, we'll teach. I'm a teacher. Everybody loves to learn. Okay, let's connect it to something super hot. An energy auditor, because every homeowner will want to know how to make their home more efficient and healthier and all of that stuff. So we rolled out programs like the HERS and BPI bundle. A regular person doesn't know anything about this, but any kind of contractor would love, I thought, to know about this. They go through like a week's worth of training and they start learning about how a house works as a system. Then they could come out to your house, do a real performance audit on your house using the cool blower door tests, which probably some of you have seen by now. Has anybody seen a blower door test where they pressurize your house? And has anybody had one? It's wicked cool. They fit your front door with this blower door. They turn it on, and every dust bunny you've ever had in your house will come flying at you. And you get to see how loose your house is. And then there's other things that are done to show you exactly where you're losing and where your opportunities to improve are. Now, some people say, oh, you don't really have to have that training. You can just go get you a blower door and you can do that. You need training. These people are using computer software to do an energy model on your home. Look for a BPI or a HERS certified professional, and we can talk more about that stuff. So I thought this was going to be super hot. It has been taken over by the community colleges, and I think we need to pressure them to not overtrain people, but get the word out that that training is there, and then start asking who's doing it. If you want an energy auditor, you can call me. Deconstruction was another one. How many people have ever done any kind of remodeling? You've taken out anything in your house and put something new in. Only a couple of people. Okay, kitchen. Kitchen's one of the biggest parts to remodel your house. Did you know that if you even put in a new hood, you change the way your home performs? There's nobody else doing talking like that. There's nobody talking about CFMs and all that. Okay, you're going to put that new hood and range in. What's it going to do to the rest of your house in terms of moisture management and all kinds of stuff, circulation, ventilation? So deconstruction was a no-brainer to me. If you're going to pull out everything in your kitchen, you probably have cabinets that are still usable for somebody. You just don't like them, right? Did you change your cabinetry?
Some of them, and I put them in the garage.
Oh, so you
tools.
You did it. That's great. A lot of people would just pull it out and throw it in the landfill. And so this deconstruction solution was really interesting because you can actually get a tax credit if your stuff is worth a certain amount, or if you're going to deconstruct your whole house, you can get an awesome tax credit. And if you want to talk about the value proposition of deconstruction, I have to talk to you about that too. All right, so weatherization, we started trying to do all kinds of things to get the conversation going. Sustainable Innovation Summit, again, we teamed up with Create West Virginia on forcing my green stuff on Create. They tolerated it. That was a couple years ago. Then we went to businesses thinking that small businesses would love to learn how to save money. They were afraid to come out and say that they were interested because of the political climate. And then we said, well, gosh, we'll just package this up and give it to the community colleges. So they're working on their own version of that. So then I changed gears again, and I said, let's go ahead and start talking to consumers. And through Green Drinks, an international organization, we have all kinds of posted conversations. That's my 3-year-old, and that's my power bill. It's real. It says $912.63. I can tell you I'm in pain and I'm motivated to figure this out. And I haven't figured it out yet. And it has everything to do with codes not being up to snuff here, people not being trained, and consumers not asking any questions or demanding anything different. You should never have a forced air heat pump installed in your brand new house. It should be built completely differently. Probably cheaper, too. Your air pump, the HVAC system that typically is here with the heat pump is not efficient for this climate. They know it. It's easy. You don't have to be very well educated to go grab a heat pump and install it in a new house. That's why we get more of the same. That's why I have a misinstalled high-efficiency heat pump that costs me almost $1,000 a month when I have to actually have heat. So Green Drinks and the Summer Energy, Green Drinks is a vehicle that we use to try to start conversations. We think that the people need to put pressure on policymakers and providers, service providers. So we try to make a big deal about talking about all kinds of fun, interesting things. Often we'll get together and we have Dilbert moments. We share the Dilbert moments. This one is, why does it seem like most decisions in the workplace are made by drunken leaders? Well, decisions are made by people who have time, not people who have talent. Well, why are talented people so busy? Well, they're fixing problems made by people who have time. You can chase your tail real easily. We try to have a very optimistic kind of conversation because you can circle the drain real fast. So we talk about a lot of different things. I try to get people to come out and talk about what they're doing, a lot of business owners, because I really firmly believe that business folks will lead the way, and we have to make it a friendly place for them to talk. There's a young entrepreneur here that debuted his solar hot water business through a Green Drinks platform, and radio stations and TV stations were there. So it's a big deal. So we're talking about this stuff. And then I've been concentrating on builders. Do I have any contractors in here? Any members of the Home Builders Association? So I can reveal to you that I'm the mole. I have worked for 2 years to be accepted into the Home Builders Association. Kind of like the if you're not earthling, I come in peace kind of deal. And we're turning things around because they were the ones that killed the energy efficiency code legislation a couple of years ago. And so, well, before I get to that cartoon, I can literally teach anybody what they need to do to build their new home to be an Energy Star home, certified home. It doesn't cost anything more. It's knowledge. It's advanced framing. It's stuff that people's grandparents knew, or stuff that makes sense, stuff that they thought about, but they just keep doing stuff the same way because, change is uncomfortable. But in 1.5 days, that should cause you to have a moment like this. I love this cartoon. Almost every day something happens that reminds me of this cartoon that I saw when I was in high school. So, the Everyday Optimist series, you can look for that. If anybody wants to be on that listserv, you can talk to me after this. I wanted to let you guys know that through conversation, there's a lot of stuff happening. I apologize if I don't have your organization that's focused on triple bottom line stuff up here, but the left-hand side of the screen is stuff that Catalyst has helped give birth to, if not given birth to. Please forgive the female metaphor. The stuff except for the e-council. E-council is at the bottom here. And we try to work with the e-council where we can, where it makes sense, where we can lend any kind of talent or expertise to their mission as well. Because it's a shared mission. All the other stuff is stuff that's popping up. I mean, there is a lot happening, but still, we're struggling mentally to overcome inertia. There's a default position that nothing will ever happen here, nothing will ever change here. But if you do what I did and just kind of ride the coattails of, the government actually sanctioned the start of this green organization, ride it all the way. Just milk it for all it's worth. Talk about all the things that are going on. Try to get involved if you can. So we switch gears, and I've got a lot of plates in the air. So we talk about informing policymakers. Now, Dawn came to this thing too. It's a series of accidents that land me here because a lot of leaders politically are too scared to actually boldly talk about energy efficiency. And there were really fun stories behind this, but on January 10th, we sort of accidentally got the House chamber for a major meeting on energy efficiency. And it had gone too far for people to stop. When they realized it was going to happen, some people really high up, and I'll leave them unnamed, they got nervous and they wanted to stop it. It was the first time, I think, Dawn, I don't know what your opinion is, it was the first time that I've seen so many different people that I've been hearing are the problem come together and they have to speak their minds publicly with the cameras rolling on high-performance codes, utility policy, and stuff like that. What do you think, Don? Was it the first time?
Among the first,
Yeah, I mean, it's something like that with that much publicity, because we've had it on fracking, we've had it on stuff like that. I've never seen it on, like, code utility policy. And some people said after this legislative season that not much happened. I actually have to bite my tongue because a lot happened that you haven't heard about yet. For instance, this 2009 IECC, it's going to be something almost invisible to you guys, but it's going to mandate that all the buildings be built to a higher standard from now on here. It's going to save money. And then this other little thing, the Building Energy Collaborative, accidentally, I read this in a strategic plan that the Division of Energy commissioned from Washington, and we're going to make it happen, and you'll be invited to get into that. So I'm into driving consumer demand, educating the legislators, and just trying to stay measurable and talk about money, because money seems to work. There's $200 million at stake here through to 2030. So it really is a serious concern. And one person has mentioned that if West Virginia does not do anything about its building codes, which has been said to be the easiest, cheapest thing you can do to improve energy efficiency, which in the whole scheme of things is one of the best things that a person or a people can do for their community, because it cuts down on pollution, it cuts down on wasted dollars in heating and cooling. The feds won't keep showing West Virginia that love. If West Virginia can't do anything for itself in terms of adopting high-performance codes, at least, then we still get federal funding for things like that. In the back of my mind, I mean, I'm talking about money, but these pictures always come up. I don't talk about them out loud very often. At the center of this picture, these are all West Virginia pictures. At the center is a kid's mouth. He lives 17 miles away from us, probably closer since we're a little closer to Boone County here. It's a kid in Printer. Have you guys heard about Printer? Manchin, now Senator Manchin, when he was governor, he went out there, and I guess he thought nobody was listening, and he said, "It's a crime that y'all haven't had drinking water for so long." What? He said it's a crime? Does he realize? I didn't believe it, but these people thought that they were living on their own. They got their well water. They didn't need city water. They went to work every day. A lot of them worked for the mines. They minded their own business. They didn't cause trouble. They weren't rabble-rousing at the Capitol or anything. Came back, fed their babies. Their well water's been contaminated by something. Amazingly contaminated. But the DEP says that the coal slurry meets the primary drinking standards set forth by the EPA, so you should be able to shove that down in the ground. You don't have to tell anybody about it. Stuff's coming out of their faucets, and they're feeding babies this water. There's projectile vomiting, brain cancer, unbelievable stuff. 17 miles away from Charleston. That drives me. Because of my high-profile status, I have people showing up at my office asking me to help them secretly. I have government leaders telling me that they support what I do, but they just can't publicly say so. And I'm not even controversial. I'm just saying this to you guys. You don't see any of this stuff on my website. Right, Dawn? I wear a suit. Somebody told me to look as conservative as possible. I said, well, I'm a business person. And this is a real cost to me as a West Virginian. I can't get the next Google. If she's going to start the next Google, she's not going to put it in Boone County, because she's going to wise up. She's going to say, ooh, whoa, some environmental issues here. This is a shared problem. I'm not pointing fingers. Are there jobs to be created out of this? Yeah, if you admit what's going on. That's just a little thing that gets me. We can talk about air, we can talk about fracking, we can talk about all this stuff. So let's talk about it. Little tiny story, dates. I heard the story that a guy traveled all night, all day across the hot desert to go to a market, and his prize was He got these dates, put them in his pocket, walked all day, walked all night back to his tent, lit the candle, and found a worm in every single one of them. So what do you think he did? He blew out the candle and ate them. So I asked, what are you going to do? I have to do it every day. When 3 ladies from Printer show up on my doorstep, they're looking me dead in the eye saying, what are you going to do? And I said, what are you going to do? It's your community. What are you going to do? And then they say, well, we're scared. We have death threats if we say anything. So I said, well, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? We're stewards of the land, stewards of our community, stewards of our fellow man. What are we going to do? So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep going with West Virginia GreenWorks. We are putting on a Mid-Atlantic Energy Efficient Building Conference in January in Morgantown. It's the second one. We're expanding for commercial, public, and residential buildings. Our focus is going to be fixing what we've got. Edison 21 is a youth mentoring entrepreneurship program. We are trying to get legs and funding for that. We're continuing to work with the Reused People of America to expand deconstruction options. We're going to keep supporting green drinks in these public conversations, and as many of you that can come out and add to these conversations, we welcome that. They're also in Morgantown and Upper Ohio Valley. We're going to keep on plugging with Create West Virginia, too. You'll hear more about that. Ignite is another public presentation format that is exciting, and I hope you guys get involved with that as well. Digiso is a digital and social media project that just opened on the west side in Charleston that can connect every one of you to greater channels. It is digital and social media. Whatever your thing is, if it's Save the Planet or math, you can reach worldwide audiences with that center's help. I'm going to keep going with the U.S. Green Building Council. Some engineers, anybody in engineering here? Do you know about ASHRAE?
Belonged for years.
Yep. So ASHRAE is coming back to life in West Virginia and joining forces. It's a really exciting time. And this Building Energy Collaborative. I'm going to keep working on that. And I say never doubt. Margaret Mead says it, but I repeat it over and over again. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. And sorry about the timing not working, because you would have gotten out of here in 10 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sarah, you mentioned Target. I saw online today that you can get that from my eye. Today, in celebration of Earth Day, they are giving away free reusable shopping clothes, although I can't promise that they're not toxic.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm going to make an executive decision here, and we are going to take our break now for about 10 minutes or so, food and drinks, and then we will resume. Thank you.